What's up? It's Tom. Thanks for joining me for today's Twins system recap and any discussion regarding Twins minor leagues, Twins prospects right now. Must start with Walker Jenkins. This is really fun to watch. A fully healthy, a rolling Walker Jenkins. You see here his last 6 games in the mix here. You know, all you need to know, 4 consecutive honorable mentions. Has made the star scoreboard in 5 of his last 6 games. You know, that's all the context you really need right there. But in case you want to see the details behind these games, those are all there. But dude is on a roll. The only dud in that is from Friday. But you're seeing extra base hits. We're seeing stolen bases as well. This is a guy who's absolutely rolling. Some more information on how Jenkins has been doing of late. In August, he's hitting 400 and probably most noteworthy, slugging 725. It's only 9 games, so, take that with a grain of salt. Striking out more and walking less than you would usually expect from Walker Jenkins, but again, this is a small sample as well, and maybe that's where some of the slugging is coming from, him being a little bit more aggressive. Speaking of the star scoreboard, he is the co-leader for August at the moment, so having a really good month. But yeah, I just want to continue to hammer on that slugging percentage. You see August 725, last 4 weeks 529. Since returning from the injured list, which is a 35-game sample, 543. And again, this is a guy who has a career 477 slugging percentage and a career AAA 458 slugging percentage. So I think that was really the biggest knock on Walker Jenkins. Always was he does everything. The power is there, but it's not really showing up in game. Well, that power is showing up in game right now. And, the strikeout to walk ratio thing is curious. But again, it's a small sample. That's usually the type of thing that kind of freaks teams out about a guy in AAA, even if they're being productive. If they're striking at 19%, that's not a high strikeout rate. That's high for Walker Jenkins, is how I would put it. And the walk rate is low. 4.8 is low, but again, if we zoom out to 4 weeks, 10.5. 35 games since returning from the IL, 9.1. Nothing wrong with that there. We'll talk a little bit more about Jenkins in a couple more segments here, but just want to call out, the conversations are swelling for good reason. And my prediction was the 24th. The 24th of this month is when we'll see Walker Jenkins. We'll talk a little bit more on that picture in a moment. But results and records, there are your results from the week so far. Twins have split so far 2-2. They are 60-63 at the moment. Taking a look at the playoff picture, they are 3.5 back in the division and 1 out of the wild card. The Tigers, with a sub 500 record, are in the playoffs right now. There is the AL wild card picture. Of course, the Field of Dreams games for the Twins was Thursday evening. The minor league side, they played at the Field of Dreams as well. The Saints. If you want to see some video from that game, the Saints game, check out Limestone Pipeline. I shared, I think, a 12-minute video that had a lot of the atmosphere of the game, some highlights and some interviews, including Jenkins being interviewed pregame and Brian Dinkelman talking quite a bit about Jenkins and Kalen Culpepper from that game. I had a bunch of Ben Ross highlights. He had a good one. Moving on to the news and notes, Buxton was activated from the IL and rejoined the Twins as the 27th man for that Field of Dreams game. Played center field as well. I haven't seen a corresponding move yet at the time of recording, but again, he was the 27th man. They get an extra roster spot for that game for whatever reason. So they'll have to make a move to put him back on the 26-man active roster today. So we'll see who that is. Emmanuel Rodriguez was activated off the injured list and rejoined the Saints as well. So both of those storylines have a Walker Jenkins impact. Buxton, we were hoping this wasn't a long IL stay, and it wasn't. So that's great. But him returning does kind of block Jenkins's path a bit, although I think those two things are not necessarily aligned in those paths. We always knew Buxton was going to return at some point. Emmanuel Rodriguez getting back to the Saints. He's been rehabbing for a while, returned to the Saints. It kind of had been put out there that they were thinking it would be a longer rehab. process, so he's back with the Saints a little quicker than I had expected. But, he complicates Walker Jenkins' path as well because Rodriguez already on the 40-man roster. So that's a huge hurdle to clear. Now, I do think if the Twins were, convinced that Walker Jenkins was an answer, there wouldn't be getting him on the 40-man roster wouldn't be much of a barrier. They would figure that out with relative ease, but that might be a tiebreaker if they're considering both of those guys, two guys that do a lot of similar things and bring a lot of diverse skills to the table. I think Jenkins has a much higher floor than Rodriguez, and Emmanuel Rodriguez still kind of again getting back up to full speed. Definitely, if you were to say today, who would be the guy you would look to, it would be Jenkins for sure. He's rolling. He's looking good. Emmanuel Rodriguez is just kind of still picking up steam. But he's definitely in that conversation, kind of complicating the picture for Jenkins. But I'm sticking with that gut. 10 days from now, Walker Jenkins is going to be a Minnesota Twin on the 24th. So we'll see if that comes to fruition. A couple other moves among catchers. Hideki Prather, who is a 2026 draftee, joined Fort Myers, and Irvin Nunez was promoted from Fort Myers to Cedar Rapids. Irvin Nunez may be the best defensive catcher who had been in the system at least pre-draft. And that kind of makes you think, okay, some catchers moving around here. Von Lackey getting called up. Is maybe Eduardo Tait going to get moved up for a bit of a cup of coffee in Double-A? It's an interesting. We'll see. At the time of recording, we haven't seen any other moves, but I have to imagine one way or another, Von Lackey's moving up to Cedar Rapids before too much longer. So, we'll talk about Carson Tinney in just a minute here. Anyway, moving on to the 3 stars of Tuesday. Not a noteworthy day across the system. These are some pretty mid performances to make the 3 stars, but Brent Francisco, pitcher for Fort Myers. Caden Kendall's keeping rolling for Wichita. He had a home run, drew a walk, was hit by a pitch. And then first star of the day, speaking of Eduardo Tait, he was 2 for 4 with a home run and earned the first star again. Not much competition on Tuesday for spots here, but Tait had 6 multi-hit games in July and already has 4 in August. So he's, his overall numbers in August don't look great because it's a lot of kind of empty games in between, but good to see him putting together some bigger games in August. And then another, honorable mentions first for Tuesday, Kendry Rojas, Walker Jenkins, Corey Lewis, Jose Salas, and Brad Rudis, who's a side-arming funky reliever for Fort Myers. I do also want to call out Khadim Diaw was having a really good game until an exciting play at the plate where he was the base runner, tried to slide in. It was a good slide. He just got, they had to make, I think it was Corpus Christi. They had to make basically the perfect play, as crisp of a play as you'll see in the minor leagues. And they got Diaw at the plate. He kind of came up. What wasn't exactly like looking really banged up, but didn't look comfortable coming up. Something in his upper body, his arm, his shoulder. Did catch the next 2 innings, but didn't take his next at bat. And then also did not play Wednesday or Thursday. So kind of a curious situation that he stayed in the game to catch for 2 more innings. And it didn't look like he sustained any further injury catching, but then did not take an at bat, did not play Wednesday or Thursday. Hopefully he's back out there before too long because he's been looking really good of late. Moving on to the 3 stars of Wednesday, though. Ryan Gallagher, this was a much better game, a much better day across the system Wednesday and Thursday. Lots of good performances from here on out. Ryan Gallagher, 5 2/3 innings, 3 hits, 1 run, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts. If you want to kind of get a deep dive into some of the changes that he's made in the second half here that have been just paying off huge, Jamie Cameron talked about those for Limestone Pipeline, so check that out. Second star, Garrett Spain. 2-homer game. 3 for 3 with 2 homers. It's a second star. How is that possible? Carson Tinney. Again, said we'd be talking about him on Wednesday. A 2-homer game for Carson Tinney. The second one, a walk-off homer. So pretty fun to see that recent draftee, second-round pick. He is only hitting 171 for Fort Myers, but has like the most 3 true outcomes line you'll ever see. A 408 OBP. He has drawn 13 walks in 11 games with Fort Myers so far, and a 429 slugging percentage as well. We talked about maybe Von Lackey moving up. My instinct is to think Carson Tinney is going to be in Fort Myers no matter what. since they have the two, they're both catchers, that would just be an easy solution. If you move Lackey up, keep Tinney there, he can kind of catch more often. Both of them are DHing quite a bit, because they've just got through a college season. It's been a long summer for them. But maybe since both of them are DHing quite a bit, Tinney could move up to Cedar Rapids as well and finish up his season there. Who knows? That would definitely depend on Eduardo Tait moving up to Double-A, because you're not going to have all three of those guys in Cedar Rapids, certainly. Two of them, yeah, you can do that since, again, all of those guys not catching every day. But moving on to the Wednesday honorable mentions, Walker Jenkins, that guy again, Noah Cardenas, Ty Langenberg, Brandon Winokur, Reed Mooring, and Jacob McCombs through Wednesday. Moving on to Thursday's 3 stars, we have Murphy Hernandez, who had a big game for Fort Myers. Again, this would have been a first star on some games. Lots of great performances Wednesday and Thursday. Second star, Adrian Bohorquez, 5 one-hit innings, no runs, 2 walks, 4 Ks, tantalizing us once again. Since he returned from the injured list, Bohorquez has a 2.45 ERA and 27 strikeouts in 25 2/3 innings. He has not given up a home run in 37 2/3 innings, and is just generally a really hard guy to slug against. That's how he's been really his whole career. Good strikeout guy. Kind of seems like he should strike out more batters some games, like this one in particular, very sharp. Only 4 Ks in 5 innings, but a guy who's super hard to square up. First star, though, Luis Fragoza, continuing to just blast home runs. 2 homers, 2 for 2 day. Probably as noteworthy, though, it seems ridiculous to say, 2 walks. He's a guy with one of the worst walk rates in the system. So in addition to homering twice, he draws 2 walks. That's great to see, but on both accounts. Obviously, the home runs are impressive. 2-homer game for him. Among Florida State League hitters with at least 200 plate appearances, have to kind of narrow it down there because technically Fragoza doesn't qualify for the rate stats yet. But he is 5th in batting average, 1st in slugging, and 4th in weighted runs created plus, WRC plus. One of the most dangerous hitters in all of the Florida State League, which is a difficult league to slug in. And Fragoza, again, leading the league in slugging among guys who have 200 plus plate appearances. Honorable mentions for Thursday, Jenkins yet again. Riley Quick, who had his best start as a Double-A, as a Wichita Wind Surge, 4 innings, 4 hits, 1 run, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. So hopefully he can end the season on a high note. Chris Valamont followed him and was really good. Caden Kendall, and once again, a good game. And then, speaking of followers, after Bohorquez, Michael Ross finished off that game for the Colonels and pitched well. So, moving on to the star scoreboard. Merrick Houston, he's been kind of stuck at 59. He's had some solid games. He's definitely slowed down a bit. Kind of got squeezed out of an honorable mention, late in this one with those last 2 days just having so many great performances. But, sometimes it's his, first full season. Sometimes guys kind of fade as that year goes on. This is the first time he's, gone through this big of a season. So maybe slowing down a little bit. That's not too abnormal, but we'll see if he can kind of catch fire again. See on down there through the top 10, Walker Jenkins cracks the top 10, which is especially impressive because he missed nearly all of May and part of June. So, and he's still within striking distance, really, of 3rd place, despite missing all that time. So, kind of puts into perspective just how good Walker Jenkins and consistent he has really been throughout when he's been healthy. Let's take a look at some of the year-to-date system leaders. I don't do this too often. I'm not going to call out all of these because you can take a look and pause if you'd like. But I do want to call out for the rate stats. I'm using a minimum of 200 plate appearances total or 50 innings pitched total. This calls out Giovanni Duran, who is up with Fort Myers right now, leading the system with a 450 OBP and a 145 WRC plus. Most of that, the vast majority of that, is from the Florida Complex League. So if that's kind of a name you're not familiar with, it's because I don't really talk about those guys in the channel here. Some other names throughout this list. I want to call out Matthew Dahlquist is another guy. You see him with the best FIP in the system. Yet another guy who has not given up a home run this season. Anyway, again, mentioned a couple of cool things going on at Limestone Pipeline, so go check that out. Thanks for checking this one out. I appreciate you. We'll talk again soon.